Hello and welcome back to Getting to Know the Fandom. We are here with the LastUrsa. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so my name is Ursa, and I guess a little bit about me. So my Sona is a timber wolf, and kind of my thing is I'm a bit of a content creator. Kind of do a little bit of everything, streaming. I do TikTok. I'm a musician in my background, and so I bring a lot of my music into kind of the things that I do.
Ooh, nice. I like that. So what actually got you into the fandom? That's going to be our first question.
So, yeah, so I've kind of been fandom adjacent pretty much ever since college. I'm in my mid 30s now, so it's been quite a while. I've been very interested in like the content and like the art and the stories and all that kind of stuff. And so like, I kind of enjoyed that content for quite a while. And it really wasn't though, however, until the pandemic hit and kind of the bringing up of VR chat in particular that I became much more engaged, that I actually created a persona that I really was starting to connect, talk, and make friends within the fandom.
All right, that's cool. So what was the inspiration or behind your persona? Since you said it was Timberwolf, right?
Sure. Yes. So species wise, one of the biggest questions I commonly get asked, your name is Ursa, why aren't you a bear? Which is a totally fair question.
It really is.
It is. So kind of go back a little more. So Ursa is a nickname that I actually got in my college fraternity. So I'm a part of a fraternity, Phi Alpha Sinfonia, which is a music-based fraternity. And it does a lot of good, and kind of like promoting music and that kind of thing. That's kind of one of its major goals. So, but yeah, so I kind of got that nickname from that and part of our process there. And so I've kind of used that. It's been, LastUrsa has been my screen name basically in everything since college. So like that hasn't really changed. But going with the persona name of Ursa just seemed to make the most sense rather than trying to kind of create something on the spot
to create a new one and everything.
Moment. Right.
Okay.
And so I kind of took that and like, honestly, even when I started engaging with people in the fandom, I didn't have a Sona yet. And I didn't have it for a couple of months, and I actually took my time in trying to come up with an idea. I spent a lot of time talking to other furries because I was kind of curious to see, like, what inspired you to create your persona? What ideas did you have in mind? How vested are you in your particular Sona? Some people, it's like, it's really near and dear to them and is super like personal and like has a very deep meaning to them,
me,
right? Yeah. And some of them are, it's just, a mode of expression in the space, and that's just kind of, what it is, and everywhere in between, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that is kind of attracted me to the whole idea of like fursonas and things like that, it scratches the same itch that creating characters in Dungeons and Dragons does.
Yeah.
I'm a huge D&D nerd and have been since college, and have been heavily involved in that kind of ever since. I ended up played for many years, ended up becoming a dungeon master, started running games online with people that I'd find on places like Reddit and things like that. And like loved creating really interesting characters. So like Ursa was kind of the same kind of idea to start. And the funny thing is once I created Ursa, I just wanted to create more. But so like Ursa's inspiration is, so the reality was there weren't very many quality bear avatars in VR chat at the time.
Yeah.
There certainly have been some better ones that have come out in the past 2 years. But at the time I was like, yeah, you know what? My personal favorite animal is the wolf, which, I also feel like acknowledging that that's also, it is probably the most popular fursona species.
It really is.
If not, it's dogs. So, but again, like very similar. So, but like, it always has been, it always has been, a species of particular interest for me. The color scheme is interesting, and I kind of laugh when I tell people where it came from. So it is mostly, kind of a blending of, my own favorite colors, but also like, so the dark navy blue and the silver color.
Oh,
that's literally the colors of the Dallas Cowboys, which is my favorite football team.
So you're a football fan.
I could be a walking mascot for the Dallas Cowboys. Hey, Dallas,
Call him right now.
And my other favorite team, which actually inspired the third color, is the Colorado Avalanche, which also has navy and has maroon, which brings in where my paw color comes from. The initial design of Ursa that I had, his nose was red. I removed that because it made me look like a clown. So,
now I'm curious.
There definitely has been there's been some iterations in his design since his initial conception. Most of it has been simplifying it, honestly. And like the one thing that I have found is that for a lot of fursonas that I've seen and have seen refs for, or just see avatars for, or fursuits for, or any art, the simple ones to me resonate more.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's grounded in more, I don't want to say it's grounded in reality, because there's always a fantastical element to it, but it kind of is at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I could see that being a thing, like, provided you're not going to see a navy blue wolf running around. Probably
not often.
But
I mean, we were talking about it on the show with Arden on the first episode of like, we made a joke about like how there's another blue wolf running around. We were making a joke about judging someone judging in the corner, which there are a lot of blue wolves actually within the fandom.
Really does not like. Yeah, the fandom does not like blue dogs.
No, they don't like them. It's just they're everywhere,
They're overdone. They are overdone.
They are.
And like
but I mean,
like the kind of thing to be. Yeah, exactly. Like that's a big part of it. I think the other part of it too is like, so it is about self-expression. So if that's the colors that you like, Godspeed. And honestly, a lot of people like, blue, like, and particularly men like blue. So like, that's going to be a common color that you're going to see, also because of the fact that blue, while not being, like a natural color, is still subdued. Right. Yeah. It's not like I'm a neon pink wolf. Not that there's anything wrong with a neon pink wolf, mind you, but people don't necessarily, it's like if you're getting into the fandom, you don't necessarily want to create the highlighter, the
highlighter avatar or the highlighter fursona.
Like the Lisa Frank of fursonas. Yes. Like,
you don't want to be that bright thing like in the corner of a dark room and it's all of a sudden it's everywhere. Yeah. I feel like, well, what is it like with my avatar? With my Sona, I just went with a basic fennec and I just put purple everywhere since that's my favorite color, and that's how Dust was born. Right. That's it. I didn't go over complicated with it
too. Right. And like the interesting thing with that is that the purple looks like style. It looks like self-expression. It looks like, oh, that's a natural looking fennec that, as a person who wants to be an individual, has made a decision to be like, oh, I'm going to style it, I'm going to add purple and blah, that kind of thing. Like, which to me comes across a lot more like that's a person, that's an anthropomorphic animal living in the world. Like, you know what I mean? And like that's
I just went and I dyed myself a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like that's kind of one of the things that's kind of brought, like, that I like particularly about the fandom is more getting into the idea of like the reality is and especially like if you're looking into like stories and you're looking into art and a lot of that, like I'm drawn to the stuff that portrays anthropomorphic animals as basically humans in fur, more or less, like, sure, there are some unique things to that experience. Of course there would be. Yeah. But, in reality, it's the fact that there is so much to relate to, even in that art, even though it's like, yeah, no, there's not, anthropomorphic animals walking about, but the feelings and the things that are expressed in the art and in other mediums is very real and very relatable,
Yeah. So have you been to any furry cons? That's going to be our next question.
Yes, so I have. So that was, and the one interesting thing, especially when I first was kind of dipping a toe into it, I'll be honest, I never thought I was going to. At first. But I also kind of feel like the interesting thing is, and one thing I've found about the fandom is, once you truly decide to, like, because you can be an observer, and like I was for many years, you can do that, absolutely, and that limits your engagement. You can still appreciate all of the content and the creativity and all of that, but if you decide to take that next step, and particularly if you decide to socialize and make friends and really engage in the space, you get sucked in.
Oh yeah.
And it's like
you definitely do.
You get pulled into everything that kind of goes along with the fandom. And so cons, I had befriended a group of friends, and we got really close, and so we did plan to go to our first con last year, and we went to Anthrocon and had a great time. It was really a really fun time that we had at Anthrocon. Weather was gorgeous. I loved the fact that we could be outside. Pittsburgh's a great city to have a con, and I love the fact, particularly at Anthrocon, that the city is so incredibly supportive of the event. Yeah. Because they acknowledge it for what it is. One, that it's bringing a ton of money into that city.
It's bringing a ton of money.
But the other part of it, too, is like Anthrocon does a phenomenal job of community engagement. So with their parade, which is is not only open to the public, but strongly encourages the public to attend.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that about Anthrocon.
So you go to the fursuit. Yeah, so you go to the fursuit parade, which is outside. They basically close off
I knew that.
Part of the road for it and everything, right? And it is surrounded by kids. I remember one of my first experiences being at Anthrocon. I was approached by a man in a suit, and he's like, hey, what day is the fursuit parade? Because I want to bring my kids to it. And so I told them, and I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah, that is so amazing. And, like, holy shit.
Such a huge fan of, like, and so now Anthrocon's doubled down on this. So not only do they now have the fursuit parade, which is engaging with the public, but they now have a whole area right near the hotel, which is basically opened up, and they do a block party basically the entire day, where the public can engage with fursuiters who want to be in that space, and so fursuiters can hang out there, and like the public's there, and it's a party. It's a great atmosphere to once again kind of just engage the community.
Oh my God, that is amazing. Oh wow. I did not know that about Anthrocon. That's so good.
Yeah.
This is a general, like,
it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't only just like help the city like bring in more like just business and more self-awareness of the con, but just it helps relations within the actual fandom itself. Because let's be honest, the fandom doesn't have that good of a representation. You know, it's getting better over time. It is getting very much better over time and stuff. And we've seen it in the last couple of years of it, like actually, you know, bringing in more people through like movies like The Bad Guys or Zootopia and stuff like that and all that. And to actually hear that at like a con, the general public can come see exactly what like furry is instead of just hearing it like online, because online there's like, we all know it is. It's a very like, you know, kind of thing. And then if you search it up, if you want to do more research, it's there. But like to actually like come down and see it, that's so amazing. That's so good. I commend Pittsburgh for that.
Right.
I commend them.
The way I look at it is like if you want to look up anything, right?
Yeah.
Going online is the equivalent of looking up Yelp reviews for something.
Exactly.
You're typically only going to see the worst of it.
Yes.
Right. But like the truth of the matter is that the furry fandom, just like any other fandom or any other group for that matter, there will be people who are doing things that they're not supposed to be. And we acknowledge those things, and we typically this fandom in particular is quite good at calling those bad actors out.
Yes, yes, we are.
There's a lot of self-policing that happens in this fandom.
Oh, yes, there is.
And but that's also because we are very well aware of our own image in the public, like, and that comes in hand with that, you know, and we want to continue to improve that image to the public, and like ultimately the idea, at least the way that I look at it is a bunch of people who have found a space and connect. For a lot of things, they're connecting to having fun. They're connecting to a lot of things that honestly kind of resonate with childhood, and like that's a good thing. Most people that you will talk to in the fandom, particularly, you know, those who are older, will tell you that like at the end of the day, they are an adult who goes and does whatever they do, their job. They may have family, kids, what have you, and that's their day to day. But like when they engage in the fandom, it's a chance to
let loose
and like just engage and be in. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's to let loose. It's to have fun. It's to find enjoyment, you know, and the opportunity to, and to Anthrocon's credit, and what I love about that is they are sharing that joy with the public, and they are bringing that joy to the public. And are allowing it for everybody, which is what it should be about at the end of the day. Like fandoms have a hard time, and a lot of fandoms have gatekeeping issues and other things like that. And you know, and we're not immune from that either. There is there is
levels of gatekeeping. There's very much levels of gatekeeping within the fandom.
But the truth is we got to open those doors, you know, and we have to find ways to bring people in, and it doesn't have to be a huge investment, and it could just be enjoying the fursuit parade that comes around once a year. But I am sure there are many families down there in Pittsburgh, in the Pittsburgh area. It is a yearly tradition for their families.
Oh, wow.
And like, on one hand, that's kind of wild if you really think about it.
Yeah, that is. That is so wild to like think that that's the family's like yearly tradition to come down and see the furries. That it's like we're a tourist attraction, you know. that's funny to think about.
We 100% are. Can we
call this the biggest ball of floof?
City's
sell tickets, sell t-shirts.
To think about what an advertising opportunity that it would be like, hey, you know what? Our city is literally taken over by a bunch of multicolored animals for a weekend. Like,
that's crazy.
I guarantee there are people who just go down there just to watch.
Yeah, there are definitely people that
alone is just
like to be like, to have that like in your city, that would have been amazing for like younger people of like growing up like within the fandom,
Right.
to see that and be like, oh well, okay, that's great. And it's just showing that like your city supports you in doing it, because I know some cities are like, oh god, the furries are back, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
there are cities like that are like, oh my god, the furries are back, oh no, here they are again. And then there are cities that are like, we love the furries, we love them, well, we love their money that they line our pockets with as well, but you know, we also love them.
Right. And at some level it is a business, and like there's understanding of that, of course. But like at the same time, you know, again, you know, I think that the credit, you know, again, we all have the ability to put out, you know, into the space in public and online and what have you, and we can put out whatever we want in terms of how we do that. You know, and it pays, you know, and especially when you're trying to bring about a better image, you know, overall of the fandom.
Definitely.
It does pay to be conscious of that fact, and to be conscious of what you're doing in public, and to be conscious of what is being posted on public internet, you know. And that's not to say that, you know, the other aspects of fandom, and acknowledging that those are things, and you know, again, you know, it's the idea at the end of the day of like, as long as you're not causing harm. That's the biggest thing.
We want to put out a good image, but we also don't want to just sit there and like be like, oh, these are just like our unwanted stepchildren, let's put them underneath the table, you know. We don't want to do that.
So like
we want to acknowledge that stuff is there, you know.
Right.
That way it doesn't seem like we're hiding anything too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And I think the biggest part that goes along with that, right, is time and place. Right? At the end of the day.
Yes. There's time and place for everything.
And place, like any kind of, you know, there are things that you don't do in public. We all acknowledge that. It's not a matter of shame. Like, shame has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's just acknowledging that these are things that are not done in, you know, necessarily in public.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why the fandom and a lot of these con spaces do create spaces.
Exactly.
For that, you know, for all of those things. And like that's a healthy, and like that is another aspect of this fandom, right? Like, to call it what it is, you know, we bring in a lot of people who don't feel like they belong, you know, and like the LGBTQ community obviously is a huge part of this fandom, and
it really is
for many years. And we want to be welcoming and accepting of them, you know, and allow them to be their authentic selves in this space. And so we've, you know, the community has provided a lot of the rails on how to do that. And like, the thing is that, at least the way that I look at it, better for it to be in a community that is open, accepting, is talking about it. Because for myself, like, I'm recently, you know, within the past couple of years, out myself as a gay man, and I have learned a ton about the LGBTQ community in general, and all sorts of things from my friends in this fandom. And that's because of the fact that, you know, so many people here are truly comfortable talking about it, which that is not the case everywhere.
Yeah, it isn't the case everywhere. And to have a fandom to actually like come into and be like, oh, we can talk about these things, is actually really nice to have, in the sense that, because like out there you really can't, and there's not really many spaces that you can talk about it. There's like close-knit friends that you can talk to, but other than that, it's kind of like, well, we don't really talk about it. But like, it's nice to have a big space where, granted, there are more and more people coming in almost every single day into the fandom to, you know, not just talk about that, but just talk about anything, honestly, and be open about it, right? And that's so nice, which kind of leads me into my next question, which was, what was your first experience? I think you answered it. first experience with the fandom in general?
Oh, it was all so I mean, so I guess that's kind of twofold, right? So like, I mean, you know, my initial contact was definitely through like art and things like that. But like in terms of socializing and actually connecting with the fandom, it's all been in VR chat. Like my initial like the initial avatar that I found was like a blue and black Rex, and eventually I got like this sparkly like cosmic Rex that they had, and then from then, as I was developing what my persona was going to look like and get some kind of ref sheet going, you know, I originally had the Canis avatar. That was what I originally used, and then have kind of evolved from there. And like I've gotten into, you know, avatars and avatar texturing work and things like that. You know, and kind of have learned a lot of those tools, you know, through time, you know, but the nice thing about that is like trying to understand and like pick an avatar that suits what you want. And the way that I look at Ursa is very, in many ways, is pretty much a self-insert, in terms of like a character. Like he does not deviate really from who I am as a person, and like I like that. It's nobody's surprised. Like if you know me, whether you know Ursa or you know me in person, there is no difference really between them, except I'm not a blue wolf. But you know, which,
are you sure?
Which honestly,
I was surprised when I actually met some of the people that from off of here when I went to the con, that they weren't actually like anthropomorphic animals. Like that honestly shocked me, you know, because that's honestly a thing that some people think. The most surreal experience for me at Anthrocon, my first con, was when a bunch of us were all in the room together and we're just talking, having a conversation, and I literally, I think I said to the whole group, I'm like, guys, I could close my eyes and just see all of our avatars, because like this literally feels no different than if we were just in VR chat right now, like except that we're all physically here. That's such a honestly, you bring that up, but like that's actually such a like surreal feeling, because when I went to FWA this year, I literally, as soon as I met like everybody, like our main core group that we like hang out with, it was definitely like very surreal, like seeing everybody like in person, and I just kept picturing their avatars like over the top of them, kind of like what is it? Have you ever seen Teen Wolf? Where the main character looks through his like wolf vision and sees like his girlfriend and sees like the kitsune spirit through like, and it's like overlaying her, right? That's kind of like how I pictured it through like actually like being at the con and everything, and it was such a surreal feeling of seeing that. And I was like, oh my god, this is just us hanging out at like at a con in VR, like kind of VR space, not really VR space, but like in like another space. And it was so surreal. So you said did you recently get into VR, or was it like, how long have you actually been in VR?
So funny thing is, I had bought a VR set like quite a few, because I had the Rift. I don't even think I had the Rift S. I had like the OG Rift. And so like I had that for quite a while, but I really hadn't used it all that often. I had done like a little bit of Beat Saber. I think I had jumped into VR chat like once or twice, got lost in an avatar world. I'm like, I don't know what any of this is, and like was like, okay, I'm good. Pandemic hits and I'm like, okay, I'm like, I got on VR chat again with the expressed intention of going and checking out furry worlds, because I had found that they had exist, and I was like, cool, we'll go check them out. So you know, your fur hub and like those kinds of places. Yeah,
your fur hub, Fur Talk and Chill. What is it? Eurofurence, I think that was one of the popular ones, right? Yeah.
Yep. And that's kind of where I met my first group of folks. And like what has ultimately happened as a byproduct of that is obviously friends groups mingle, you meet new people, and you kind of meander your way through, you know, ultimately in that kind of thing. And you meet more people, and you meet more people and more people and more people from there. And it's like, you know, you really don't have to go after you've met your first group, you never have to go back. You will have a never-ending plethora of new people to meet, which especially if you're engaging in other social opportunities. Like Furality is great for that purpose, right? You can meet new people at an event like Furality too, which is great.
Yeah, like Furality is really good, which is honestly crazy to think about, which I think we talked about it on the show before, of just like the con space from moving from like in real life to actual VR space and having that within the VR space. Which is so crazy because now it's more even kind of like anybody can go to a con now. It's not just you have to go to a certain city, right? You can now go to a con and have fun, and you don't have to worry about, not having a fursuit or not having friends to be there. Because like in VR, there's always like your Persona pretty much 24/7, right? Unless you like change avatars. But like you don't have to worry about it anymore. Like it's you don't need just a fursuit. You don't need to have art. You don't need to have these things. You just need a persona, a dream, a VR headset, or you just need to have a group of friends to say you're furries nowadays. And it's just it's all there for you, right? And that's such a great thing to think about, because I know when I was like searching up furry and everything, when I was like coming into the furriness, that I did, back in the olden times, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, guys, and the internet was not only MySpace and other things like that.
Gotta love Tom.
I know, right? He was my only friend because I never got into myself. I know, I only had Tom as a friend, but you know what? I milked him for all he was worth. Not like that.
Well, there it is.
I mean, if I'm gonna sell out, I'm gonna sell out big. Okay.
Listen, just glad that you've managed to get yourself canceled after only what? This is episode 3.
Episode 3. Look, if I'm gonna earn it, I'm gonna earn it. Okay. But no, to think of like how far furry has come, though, from the original, like kind of from when I was growing up, probably when you were growing up, of like learning about what furry was and like seeing some of the comics and the oldies that were there, and it's so crazy to think of like how far it's actually come now. Like VR, there's like apps, there's even dating apps now. You like that was it's so crazy to think about that now, of how it's moved into so many different spaces, from just just being like a little niche on the internet,
Right. Like if you look at the history, and I've had some friends who have been really interested in the history. So like, yeah, the fandom was very much an underground niche kind of group for a long time. And then the internet exploded. It exploded it in so many different ways, because it was something, it tapped into something that, kids growing up on the internet, or getting into the internet, it was a space that they could explore a lot of things, a lot of creative outlets and things like that, which people were immediately drawn into. It is the same vibe in a lot of ways that anime was for so many people in our generation. In that same kind of vein, that there's a lot of creative opportunity and outlet there. So like, it explodes, it gets really big. And of course, everyone wants to tap into it. They want to portray it as a lifestyle, and all of these other kinds of things. Yeah. And for some people, it certainly is. Oh, yeah. For some people, it definitely is. Cool. Like, right.
Which is more power to you.
Like, right. I think the challenge is, as the fandom continues to grow and expand, is how do we maintain some of the things about the way the fandom may have been that were liked and that people liked in general, but also making sure that the fandom is accessible to everyone, which that's a major challenge.
Yeah, that really is. You have to somewhat keep the old, which made the fandom work and everything, the niche and all that. But you have to expand, and you have to kind of acknowledge that the history there, right? So, like with the LGBTQ and everything, the history is there. We have to do the same with the actual fandom itself as well, right?
Right. Well, and what goes along with that though is like, and if you've looked, anyone who has a Twitter account and follows, furry Twitter in general, there have been numerous issues around diversity and inclusion that have come up. I know in particular, like women, there's been a big thing with women lately in particular, and it's like, you talk to anyone who has knowledge of how the fandom operates, like the truth of the matter is that the fandom wouldn't stand without women. Let's just call it what it is. They are in some major ways the creative backbone of the entire fandom. And so to think that, women shouldn't have a voice or shouldn't have a place is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And the same thing is applied to any other group.
Exactly.
Right? So there's been issues with older people being in the fandom, and it's like, well, guess what? The fandom wouldn't exist if those older people weren't around.
Exactly. So, you hear that? Respect your elders. Well, do make the gray muzzle stand up, because trust me, it's not going to be pretty. They're going to break hips.
And the thing is that it is such a huge appeal. Yeah. And the fandom was created by older people. It was not created by younger people. Yeah. Like, there is an aspect of this like that I've kind of realized of like reconnecting with your youth and like that joy and that happiness that I feel like is a really essential part of the fandom in general. Yeah. It's something that I think is often overlooked, but like there's a lot of truth to that. And like the way the world is and the way it has been, like we all need more joy and happiness. We do. In our lives. My God. And I think so many people come here for that reason.
Yeah, they really do. The fandom for me, which I think you share this sentiment, is a way to escape kind of like the real world going on, right? Which I think most people could relate to. Yeah. Of like, something bad is like going on in your life, or you just don't like what's going on in your town or something else, or things upon that nature. It's definitely like a really good escape to come in and have people that you can come and like hang out with and just enjoy the day with, right? And enjoy like time with, and have it not be worrying about like having to explain things, because they know, they understand. It's always like, because I know a lot of the fandom is very much within the LGBTQ, right? And for like younger people within that, it's a lot difficult to find those resources and everything out there through just normal means, right? Granted, it's getting a little better, but we still have a ways to go through all of it. But through the fandom, it definitely is a good place to come and kind of experience that, right? And to learn about it, because a lot of the fandom is again LGBTQ and everything. There's literally everybody from all walks of life within the fandom to talk to learn things from, and to find resources from, which like I think right on your stream right now during Pride Month, you're actually doing a charity stream, right? Which is what your t-shirt is about.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's, to me, like, one of the things, and like starting to get in like the creative space, right? And content creation and all that. One of the things that I am passionate about is also wanting to give back and to try to support those who are in need. So like last year was the first, like I had literally only, funny thing is last year when I did it for the first time, I had only been streaming maybe for about 2 months. And like I made affiliate pretty quickly, and that was obviously, I will say, is 100% thanks to all the furry friends that I had made over the previous year. But But I got in there and I was like, okay, I definitely want to do this, and like got into the process of like creating it and doing all the overlays and like the video and promoting and all that kind of stuff. And like we did a good thing for Trevor Project. I was really happy about that. This year we're doing Trans Lifeline is the charity that we're supporting this year. And like I really enjoy doing it every year, and you know, seeing like all the cons and everything, and like the fact that a lot of it is giving back to you know, whether it be you know, animal resources that are in need, whether they be domestic or wild, which I've seen both, but I've also seen more recently, and like that you know, we're looking at LGBTQ organizations, particularly ones that are serving communities in crisis, like you know, like Ferality did an organization out of Florida, which like the people who are in that state need a lot of support. Like, so it's, I think it's important that, you know, people who, you know, just like any community, if you're in a position that you're able to support others, find a way to do it that's meaningful to you. And like that's kind of what my mantra is. Which
is a good mantra, honestly. That I have yet to do a charity stream. I'm trying to find the right one that I want to do. Which there's a lot out there, and I want to make sure that it is the right one for me, and it's the thing that like I want to do, right? And I want to make it as special as possible. That way we not incentivize, but like get as many people to contribute and to be a part of it as possible. Definitely I want to do that during my streaming and stuff like that, which is honestly why I haven't done anything yet, which I am so glad for like people like you and other people who have done charity streams for that, which kind of brings me to kind of like my next question, which is which is gonna get more personal. So we're gonna move into more silly stuff. Okay. So when growing up, right, how did you kind of like figure out that you were a furry?
So interestingly, like, so I think it's interesting because first and foremost, I think that the idea of you're a furry versus saying the phrase you're a part of the furry fandom, those have two very different connotations. They do, if you think about it, right?
They do.
And to me, like, my thought about it, especially when I started trying to engage in the fandom, was more the latter. Like, you are a part of the furry fandom. I didn't necessarily fully jump on the idea of you're a furry, because I think that term, and again, like, I think just especially with a lot of the negative public connotation that the fandom has, puts a lot of added weight on that word.
Yes.
You know, and you know, in reality, at least in terms of the word itself, those two things should be interchangeable, but they definitely do hit different when you listen, when you hear them, especially when you're in the fandom. They do hit different.
They really do.
You know, and like, and you know, one of the things that I have, and like I've talked to friends outside of the fandom about it and brought it up, and like, you hear it all. You hear all the stereotypes. You hear all the stuff that the media has brought up about it. And, you know, you very simply, the way I look at it and the way I explain it to people outside of the fandom is very simple. I'm like, this fandom's no different than if I were into a particular video game fandom, or if I was in anime or DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, like, you name it. All of these fandoms have the same things the furry fandom does. It's just that the media hasn't portrayed all those things publicly, you know, like they have done with the furry fandom.
Can we get some Star Trek representation in the media, please? We know what goes on at those conventions. We know.
But it's fantastical. It's much easier to portray these crazy things with a bunch of multicolored animal fursuits.
Because it's a spectacle, right?
Right. That's exactly what
it's a spectacle. It's not on the norm. It's one thing to be like, oh look, I'm pretending to be an alien, right? Like in Star Trek and all this. Oh, I'm a Klingon or stuff like this and all. It's another thing to be like a person that's dressing up like an animal and running around going uwu owo, right? Like in like the real world space, or having ears or a tail or anything like that. And I could see why like the media kind of portrays us in the light that they do. Although it is getting better. It is getting better. There have been better stories about the actual fandom and people like within it, which I mean, hello, hi. This is why I made the show, for us to get to know the actual people in the fandom, not just the fandom as a whole. So,
and I think that the thing is that honestly, I think the fandom would be larger if it didn't have the taboo associated with it, to be honest. I think the other part of it too is that kind of that idea of being sucked into everything is also kind of in a way brought on about that taboo, because you meet a group of people who are in the fandom and you express interest and they're like, oh my gosh, one more person. Yes, come
to us. One of us. And then they like surround you and put ears on you and a tail on you, and then all of a sudden you pop up and you go, ooh.
Yep. But like, I think the thing is like more and more, and hopefully this will happen as, like, I mean, you look at a lot of things in media and you're like, oh my gosh, that's absolutely furry bait. And like, listen, people who are in media right now, and especially when you're looking at video games and you're looking at cartoons and animation and things like that, these people aren't stupid. They know exactly who they are advertising to and what audiences they're going to pull with certain choices they make. They know this. And so like, the thing is,
we're looking at you, Fortnite.
One step in the direction. Like, yes, Fortnite, Pixar, like DreamWorks, like all of them, like
they know what they're doing. I mean, they came out with Zootopia and they're like, oh, we're surprised that so many furries are going to Zootopia. No, you're not. You know exactly what you were doing.
Really?
What? What part of the development process of this movie made you think that furries were not going to see it if you were going to put anthropomorphic animals, especially on the detail in the realism that like most people kind of imagine the furry world to actually be, right?
Right.
Within the fandom, at least.
And like, it's interesting. I actually really like what they've done with Zootopia beyond the movie, because like I loved the Zootopia plus side stories. Loved them.
Oh my god, I binge watched them.
Anything to make that world look more alive and vibrant. Like I love that from a storytelling aspect, from a world building aspect as well. Like it scratches a lot of D&D itches for me as well. Like I love that stuff.
Which I know they're coming out with part 2 as well. So I hope they follow up more with Nick and Judy. Because I haven't read anything on it.
I think the big thing with the fandom in general, though, is that we are in the process of normalizing. Like that, normalizing the fandom as a thing and acknowledging it, normalizing like what brings people into the fandom, right?
Exactly.
And so like when we're seeing things like those movies and cartoons, like, and the video game references, like we know that these are the gateways that are bringing people into this fandom, and the creators know this too. They're not dumb.
Oh, they do.
And like as it becomes more and more normalized, one of the concerns that will certainly come out about that is the corporate jumping into the fandom, which the fandom, I think, in a very big way has policed this in a huge way to not let that happen. And like we have such a vibrant, like small business, individual creator community here. And no, I don't think anyone wants to see that go.
Yeah.
I think that there's an opportunity to work and like find ways of working with, you know, these companies. And it might just be a matter of just being like, we're referencing we're referencing, we're acknowledging what it is, much of what we're doing now already, right?
Yeah.
You know, you put out a, you know, perfect example of this, right? And another one that just happened today on the Nintendo Direct. They released they showed a trailer for a brand new Mario game, and they did the whole trailer for it. And at the very end, the post, like the post visual after the trailer, they showed that there's a power up for the new one where Mario turns into an elephant. And that is furry bait, ladies and gentlemen.
That is definitely furry bait. Oh my god. That's
like, so, and like, yeah,
that's great.
So
that's great.
You know, the world knows.
The world,
and, like, the thing is that, like,
yeah, the world knows, right? Like, they know what furry is. They know exactly what we are.
Yeah.
And we're slowly getting in there into, I wouldn't say the mainstream, but although I would say the mainstream. I mean, if we're having shirts at Hot Topic now, okay, if we're having shirts at Hot Topic, we're in the mainstream. We've made it. The furry fandom has made it. And I think that shirt was actually designed by someone who was in the fandom as well. I think I'm assuming because it was way too good of like furry art to not be like someone that designed it within the fandom, which, I mean, we're slowly becoming somewhat mainstream. We're not there yet, but I would say we're dipping our toes into it, you know, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that the next kind of part of that, so it is embracing the diversity, which is something that the fandom has to work on. We have been, we've had this kind of pseudo like protective as well as like gatekeeping. Like, protective and gatekeeping are very close to one another, right? And like, being protective of the community without being gatekeeping, that is a hard line to walk at times.
It really is.
But we have to. And we have to find a way to do that, not only so that we are being fully, inclusive of everybody. You know, we don't want to include bad actors, mind you. And like, again, I don't think we're ever going to stop policing our own fan.
Yeah, we're never.
That's never going to go away.
Yeah.
But we have to be inclusive. But I think the other part of that too is we have to understand that people are going to engage in this fandom from a lot of places. It may be extremely limited and being like, hey, I like that movie.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I want to go and talk to other people who like that movie. Or whatever, like, or I want to draw art of, that one thing, but I'm not into the rest of it. Like, that's okay. And like, we want, that is the kind of thing that we need to kind of promote and encourage.
Exactly. We do.
Right along that line, one of the interesting things that I got, so my second con that I went to TFF this year.
Ooh.
And, what was really nice was, so now I've been, in terms of the content creation stuff, I had been streaming now for almost a year. I had really started coming into my own in terms of creating TikTok stuff. So kind of my content creation on TikTok, I initially started by putting up clips from my stream, but that eventually evolved into doing singing. And was a great way to get back into singing, even with pandemic stuff going on and things like that. I had been singing, in groups and stuff prior to the pandemic. But when the pandemic hit, a lot of those things just shut down completely because of, there was no performance thing going on and people were in lockdown and all that stuff. But finding this space and being able to do it on my own and like, really finding not only like, I love to sing, so that's no big thing, but like being able to take that though and put it in the VR space, put myself in an avatar and go and do that, opened a lot of creative avenues there, and the opportunity to do that. So at TFF, I went to one of their karaoke sessions and sang. Which was a blast, and it was recorded, and I put it up on my TikTok, and it's the only TikTok that actually shows my face.
I think I've seen this TikTok.
Yeah. And, but one of the interesting comments that I got on Twitter when I shared that video was, wow, you were so brave for getting up there and singing and not being in fursuit. And I was like, that's something that needs to change. Because it goes back to that idea of like, the space is not just for fursuiters.
No, it is not.
It never has been, and it never will.
Yeah.
It's worth noting, and it's worth being aware of from a statistical point of view. And I think First Science recently reported this. Roughly 20% of people who are in the fandom, to the point of taking a First Science survey, which is already a smaller group of the actual
fandom. Yeah.
But 20% of those survey takers said that they had a fursuit, which means in reality, if you consider anyone who engages in furry content as being a member of the fandom, you're probably looking at less than probably 10%.
Oh, wow.
Actual having fursuits. Now,
just between us, what is it?
Based on any math.
Yeah.
But
well, just between us, like you have a fursuit and I don't. So like, just on the spectrum of that, it's right. I don't have one, but yet I express myself in a way through VR and through like other means of that, like streaming and art and TikToks and other stuff like that, which is something to think about as well. Being able to express yourself in more ways, which I touched on it earlier in the show. There are so many avenues that you can go to now. That is not just, oh, you have to have a fursuit to be a furry. You don't have to have a fursuit to just be a furry. You never just had to have a fursuit to be a furry. You are a furry through your art, through the way that you make content, through the fandom, or you just being part of the fandom, right? It's not just you have to have a high label.
Right. The definition of being a furry is enjoying anthropomorphism in general. That is
exactly.
That is it. That is the qualifier.
Yeah.
Like, so there is no additional qualifiers of that. Now, to engage more in the fandom, you may want to do things like create a fursona, and express that fursona, whether that be through art, whether that be through an avatar, whether that be through a fursuit or what have you. But much to what you're saying, a fursuit is an extremely cost prohibitive measure to try to define people being engaged in the fandom, because it is thousands of dollars. Calling it, exactly what it is. And the bottom line is,
it is.
And especially as the fandom is getting progressively younger, you can't, like, there's just no way that people can afford that.
Let's be honest. In the first episode of the show, Arden said that as young as 12, they already had partials, his nephews, right?
Right.
As young as 12. I'm jealous. I never thought I would be jealous of a child, but I am.
Thinking as an adult,
exactly.
I could not fathom buying
anything like that
for someone under 18. They're going to grow out of it. And
exactly.
Like, just knowing how expensive they are.
Right? When he said that, it honestly boggled me, because I was like, oh my god, it's not even just that they're gonna grow out of it, that they're as young as that and they already have something that a few years ago, not even just not just that, I mean, you don't gotta expose me like that. But no, something that years ago, right, was defined as that is what you have to have to be a furry, right? And to think about how far the furry fandom has actually come, in the sense of you don't just need that to be a furry. There are so many avenues for it, and I am here for it, and I am ready to see how far it goes in the future with that.
And I think that the one thing that I really do like, and I like the idea of, and I think a lot of people, especially who are dipping their toe into it, like to do this a lot, and I'm here for it. I love the idea of like doing the cosplay light versions of being a furry. And what I mean ultimately by that is getting a tail, getting a pair of ears, getting something. You know, it even could be something like a collar, you know, or whatever, or any piece of item that connects you to the fandom in some way. Like, and that lowers the price of entry in so many ways. And honestly, it could be a con badge. Like, that's another perfect example, right? Like, or just art in general. Like, it's exactly what you said. Like, and like the funny thing was, honestly, I like a year ago, if you had asked me if I was going to get a fursuit, I would have told you no. I did not see myself doing it. I went to TFF and I was like, okay, no, I'm going to do it. and the rest as they, you know, and like the funny, I haven't had it at a con yet. You know, AC next week will be my first con with my fursuit. So that's exciting.
I'm expecting pictures in my DMs, you know.
Oh, there will be plenty of pictures.
I'm ready.
Sure. You know what the funny thing is? I didn't think about this with a partial at first. Is like what clothes to wear with it. So like, because you know that you gotta have some consideration for what clothes you're gonna wear with your partial.
Exactly.
So like the one piece that I had that I know I was gonna go, and I bought this right around the time my fursuit was going to come in. I bought a Cowboys jersey because I felt like come on, like So like I have a Cowboys jersey pretty much for the express purpose to wear it with my fursuit. Although
so you're gonna be a walking ad
because I am a cow. Not all the time. Like, are
you the new mascot?
I wish.
Can we put a cowboy hat on you and like have you make that jersey in VR and be like, I'm here to try out for the Cowboys mascot?
Cowboy hat. I'd have to look for an asset for that.
I know there's cowboy boots out there for things as well.
I didn't say that. I will absolutely say so that when I went to TFF, TFF is in Dallas. Now, I had never been to Dallas prior to this. Of course, as a Cowboys fan, I was like, I have to go see the stadium. So you better bet I absolutely went and toured the stadium when I went down for TFF. And I brought all the people that I was meeting up down there to be like, come on, we're going to go tour AT&T Stadium, which is a gorgeous stadium. Holy crap, it is so freaking nice. You know, now, would I love to go to a future TFF in my partial suit and like mess around on field, because we got to go on field on the field also, and like to go in my partial suit on field and like take pictures on the field in my partial. I would love that. I would absolutely love that.
I think the goal should be getting Dallas cheerleaders, right? Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders to pose with you. And have your jersey on and everything with your cowboy boots and cowboy hat.
So like, but like the other thing I went and bought, I just bought today or yesterday actually. I bought 2 shirts that are gray that kind of match the gray that I have on here, and they're both interestingly enough they're both music shirts, which is fitting. One is like a guitar, which is in the shape of a guitar, but if you actually look at it closely, it's like a nature scene, which is really cool. The other one is a picture of a singing bear, which I was like, this is perfect. So having to look for clothes for your partial suit was not something I had immediately thought of, but now have checked that box.
That's good. I'm doing a partial as well. I'm trying to at least. I hope I can actually get the money and actually keep the money this time, because every time I've tried to get like a fursuit commissioned and everything, I've kind of had to spend the money elsewhere. Which, I mean, that's life, you know. It's there. It happens. Absolutely. Life catches up with you, and you gotta sacrifice things that you want for things that, like, you know, are gonna help you live and not just be on the street and stuff like that. So
Young
I'm doing a
furries,
partial.
This is a disclaimer.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the disclaimer.
Prioritize your spending.
Prioritize.
Don't save. Eating is more important than a
Yes.
fursuit.
You can't live on ramen your entire life. I mean, you can. But it gets boring after week 2. But that's something I'm actually like kind of not regretting doing with like my persona is putting him in this type of outfit, right? Because I mean, I don't have any like leg, like anything covering my legs. So if I get like feet paws for my partial, my legs are going to be exposed. But I'm looking around and seeing what I can do before it comes in to kind of establish that at least, you know.
Listen, you just have to get programmer socks. Like, I feel like that would totally fit.
I mean, I do have them. So I mean, in the game, and I'm the real in the game, in VR chat. Let's make this very clear. I do have those programmer socks in VR chat. There we go. That I saved it. Anyway, but
yes, totally
we're gonna
saved it.
Yeah, yes, so much. We're gonna ask you 2 more questions, and then because we are over time, sadly. But so we're gonna ask you 2 more questions. One personal, one something for within the future and everything. What was your first furry crush? Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeesh. So I'd say like I had exposure to anthropomorphic animals from a very young age. I was a Disney kid 100% from like Robin Hood, like, you know, but like I guess if you want to talk about crush, it was probably Road Rovers, like
probably okay. Yeah. You know, we've heard that answer a couple times. So that's nice. Which I've even told you this, and I expressed it on the show. Mine was Wergorumon. That was like my first like kind of furry crush through it. And then our last question for you today is, what do you hope to provide for the fandom? Like, what do you hope to give it in the future through content creation or other means?
I love that. That's a great question. So one thing that I definitely want to kind of continue to provide the fandom is, so I have really enjoyed doing the singing thing and bringing that to the fandom. And I've gotten some feedback from some folks that they're like, hey, like, I really love the fact that you're doing this. And this kind of thing, and it's like encouraging to other people, and like I've offered some people who've reached out, you know, opportunity of feedback on like things like their singing. My background is in music education. I was a teacher at one point, and did voice and like could still do that. So I like to offer, like, I'm happy to like offer feedback and things like that in terms of performance, but I want to kind of ultimately, it's the idea of, we have so much more freedom in the ability to create whatever we want in this space. We are often held back by what our own perception of the quality of that content is.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that it's not about the quality of the content that's being put out. And here's why I say that. You will always get better at your content. Whether that be musical performance, visual art, acting, drama, whatever it is you put out into the world, it will get better as you practice and get more experience in it, no matter what. But put it out there, because you're going to be surprised, because you are your own worst critic. You will always criticize yourself more than others will. And you keep putting stuff out there, and the reason you put it out there is because you find joy in doing it. Not what other people are going to come back to you and say, not to make the social media numbers go higher. You put it out there because you enjoy doing it in the first place, and you enjoy sharing the love of doing that with other people. So I want to continue to encourage that. I want to do work to continue to kind of provide this open and supportive community, and try to really work towards continuing to remove gatekeeping, removing barriers of entry, and continue to promote, you know, the positivity and the positive aspects of this fandom as best we can. Like that's kind of ultimately the goal. And then all the good things that this fandom can do, things like the charity stream work that I'm doing, things like, you know, just trying to work with other people and doing it because you enjoy doing it at the end of the day. You know, we are in a culture and in a space right now, and the furry fandom's not immune to it. This chasing of clout, especially when you're looking on online platforms like your TikToks or Twitch, and wanting to make those numbers go higher all the time, as if it's a reflection on your own worth. And like, that's just not how it works. You're not in command of the algorithm at the end of the day. There are so many things that can make or break that algorithm. And at the end of the day, we should be pushing out content because we enjoy it, because we think it's important, because we think it's necessary to share to other people. And the thing is that content will get out there to who it needs to. There's always means. And as long as you're genuine and you're true to yourself, it's going to make it. It's going to get there. It takes time.
It's definitely going to resonate with people if you be more yourself than worry about what other people think and just the numbers through social media. That's not what your worth is. Your worth is definitely what you think of yourself and what you put out into the world. All right.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. So we have one more question because I forgot this question.
Okay.
As a general, what do you think of the furry fandom in general? Now remember, this is a very loaded question. Be careful with your words.
So in general, I think the furry fandom I think the reality is that the furry fandom can be whatever you want it to be. I think the furry fandom, you can get as much as you put in to the fandom, just like most things, honestly, in life, to be fair. There are good parts, there are not so good parts, just like life. It is a reflection of life. It is no different, especially with it being such an online heavy thing. You have to be safe, you have to be smart, you have to watch out for yourself. You have to practice all of the kinds of things that, we're taught now about, being safe on the internet and those kinds of things too. But, if you do that and you're smart about it and you are genuine and authentic when you're presenting and you're around other people in the community, you can build lifelong friendships that, they'll be with you for the rest of your life. And you'll be sharing in this common fandom, which is about, as we talked about earlier, is about having fun and finding joy, which finding a source to do that for your life, honestly, is priceless.
It is. It really is. That is a genuinely good answer to that question. Which I don't think for the episodes that we've done, we haven't had an answer quite like that. Which is good. Which is really good. We have more than just, like we have like a whole bunch. Like the show is supposed to be. We're getting to know the people, right? We're getting to know your guys' take on the fandom and what you guys think of it and everything. And not through just like normal, well, not normal, but more of like a kind of more of like, oh, it's a popular say, right? There's people of all people, like all people, all throughout, like content creators, non-content creators, all that, which is that's what I hope to provide with the show, is to show the fandom isn't just it's not a popularity contest. We're all here. We're all wanting to get to like know the fandom and know the people within it and understand our fandom. All right.
Diversity is what makes our fandom the unique space that it is. And
it is.
We will never get rid of it because it is such an important part of who we are.
Yeah. Which I think that's what the fandom was founded on, actually. Was just different people, walks of life, coming together to be balls of fluff and to understand each other. Which that actually leaves us with the end. So thank you for coming to your interrogation. I got a lot of information out of you, which honestly I didn't think it was going to be that easy. But thank you everybody for joining us on Getting to Know the Fandom. We will see you guys next time on next episode. Would you like to plug your socials so other people would know before we shut up?
Absolutely. You can find. First of all, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
And then, yes. And also, so my socials, I am at LastUrsa. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. I'm at the same at all of these places.
All right. And I've been Dustfinick. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys all in the next episode, which I don't know who we're going to have as a guest. So, watch till the end of the video to actually see. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Seems you're at the end of the video. If only there were places you can go to see more content of mine. Hello and welcome to Getting to Know the Fandom. Today's guest, Fiction Boy. Yeah, I remembered it this time.
You did remember this time after the second take. Anyways,
I know, right?
Hello, everybody. My name is Fiction Boy.